how do I talk about Elden Ring without spoiling Elden Ring? Anything that describes something that happens in Elden Ring is a spoiler. I didn't know this fight existed. I just didn't know. And that's the thing that makes Elden Ring blow my mind. There are things that I may not know unless I go and actively search for them. I just did not know that this fight existed. I don't want to talk about the fight. I want to talk about the music. You know what's funny? This song, the Regal Ancestor Spirit, is different from every single track in the game. Typically, what I've heard, and I went through the whole soundtrack to listen to everything, which, by the way, it's incredible. Everything is very choral, dong, ba-dong, ba-dong, epic. It sounds very Western, medieval, Western. The Regal Ancestor Spirit, as far as I can tell, and I didn't listen to every single song, is the only song in Elden Ring, in the OST, that doesn't sound like that. And without spoiling it, it's interesting. And why is that? Now, I don't know. There's not enough info that's come out for me to understand or try to make assumptions as to why this piece in particular doesn't sound like everything else. You know what this boss battle reminds me of? It reminds me of Princess Mononoke. And the music that we're going to listen to sounds so much like Ashitaka's theme. There's this natural sense of human versus nature. And there's this antagonism that's occurring here that is very interesting without spoiling the fight, which I so badly want to do, but I'm not going to do because you need to get to this area to do this. I mean, it really is. I read a bunch of comments about this fight, and it really is all true. This fight is unlike any other fight in the game. Regal Ancestor is the perfect way to describe this song, as is the title of the song. You almost don't want to fight. It's a very powerful scene. It's a very powerful moment. The fight is kind of hard, actually, like all of them are. But there is something about this that is very ethereal. There's no true melody, even. We can tease it out a little bit, and we can look at that. But there's no true melody either. It's just this soundscape, this Eastern Japanese soundscape. I don't know why they chose to not make this like other fights. What about this piece to Yuka Kitamura? Why did she elevate this? Is it because it's a fight between human versus nature and animal? And so there's this sort of, we understand that, I don't want to speak on Japanese culture because I'm not Japanese, but there is this, natural deity protector of the forest sort of thing in Japanese culture, from what I understand. And that this fight sort of represents that, I think. Let's just listen to it, because it's hard for me to tease this one out. This one's hard, but the more I listen to it, the more I start to understand it, and the more you hear all this different stuff happening at one time, and it's just special. So let's dive in and just take a listen. Here we go. Pause. We hear this rattling, it's this earthy, it's very profound, even in 14 seconds. And then you get the what sounds like throat singing, this very bassy. There's a sense of foreboding here. There's a sense of its power, but it's natural, beyond this world, raw power. That's the closest thing we get to a melody in this first section. And it's up to you to think about what that means. To me, it's like mythical. It's mysterious, can't be understood, deep beyond words. You hear that one soprano voice over top? Why is that written like that? It's so interesting. And then there's like 5 different 5 different instrumental voices. You got the voice, the whatever instrument. It sounds like a violin, but I don't think it is. And then the underneath, there's also the bass. And it all coalesces to form this thing, and then we move forward, obviously. And that rattling. There's an octave there between, it sounds like a cello or a viola, and the singer, soprano. There's the same note, and I think it's to enhance and to elevate the sort of ethereal feel. It also sounds like a string quartet, plus other instruments around it. There's a sadness, right? There's a heavy feeling of misunderstanding, of wishing things were different. That's sort of what I'm picking up on it. Why do you think they held a pause there? There's a long pause. And in singing, we were always told that there is power in the space. And so why do they include a pause with wah, 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 in the background? You know, what is that supposed to do? What is that supposed to tease out of us as a player, as a listener? What is that supposed to tease out? What does it make us feel? Is there a sense of foreboding? Is there a sense of sadness? Is there a sense of understanding that nature is bigger than us? Yeah, something so simple in a pause can be so profound. Also notice that the instruments are all taking turns, sort of. Not only are they complementing each other, but they're all doing their own thing. And then sometimes they coalesce and they come together, and other times they're separate. Now there's a shift. Now we've got more instrumentation. You hear a clarinet in there. There's also a choir. Everything is sort of like, again, there's a sense of sadness that, but it's like something is springing to life. The clarinet. And you hear now, too, there's a melody, and it's all with the female voice, which it's usually, when a female voice is up high, especially sopranos, it's almost always used as like a celestial voice or a voice of God. When we explore ethereal sounds, it's almost always a soprano, and in that case, it's a soprano choir. And you hear that there is this sort of undercurrent that's moving us forward. We've entered into a melodic phase, even though the melody is not very obvious. On the tracks. and then it settles down and it fades out. And it's a really interesting piece of music, and it's hard for me as a singer who is used to melody. When I first listened to it, I didn't like it because I have a tendency to really enjoy melodic pieces. Really quickly, let's shift to the main theme, and I just want to point out how different this is. Now, of course, I understand the main theme is setting up the game experience, but like, just listen to how this is very much like, it's not the same at all, but it's very much like Debussy, in the sense that Debussy, his musical language flows. There's a sense of water. There's a sense of natural current. If you listen to the main theme, it's super obvious, right? I mean, just first of all, this main theme really repeats itself, but it's only like 1 minute and 10 seconds. It starts off with the harp. There's a very clear, like, forward momentum. The harp sets us up in this medieval time period. It's very like, there's a sense of wonderment. And then listen to the strings. You got drums in there. There's a choir in the background, and then too, ba-da, ba-da, ba-da-da-da. There's a melody, and that isn't the case in the Regal Ancestor. It's all up to interpretation as to why that is. Now, of course, the composers know the answer. It's up to us to interpret how we feel about it. That low brass. Sounds like a men's chorus, too. I mean, that theme is wild. And what's cool about the main theme is that there's a sense of there's danger at every corner. You just feel it. And obviously, if you've played Elden Ring, you know that there's danger at every corner. That's the whole point of the game. But there's this. It's just, as a contrast, it's huge. It's an enormous shift, and a lot of the songs end up sounding like that. There is a shift there. There is a sense of a vastly different experience tonally and melodically and musically. And the question really remains, why did they choose to pivot from this very Western sound for this particular boss fight? Now, I don't want to spoil it. I don't even really want to talk about it too much because I still think it's too early in the game's life cycle to sort of explore specifics. But given the nature of the fight and given the nature of the whole setup to that fight, I think I understand why. And that's why I hearken back to Princess Mononoke and Ashitaka's theme, because the same themes feel as though they're playing throughout both that movie and this particular boss fight. So do it that way you will. Removing ourselves from the game, how does this make us feel? What do we feel? What do we think? What do we imagine when we're playing this? And I think that's really the crux of it. This fight is about honor in a lot of ways, human versus nature, and honoring the two. But when we hear this music, where does our mind go outside of the context of the game? And I think that's worth paying attention to, because that's what emotionally resonates with us and then carries us as we, go about our daily lives. Wow, that music was incredible. It made me feel this. And that's the whole point of the channel, ultimately. So yeah, it's cool. I hope that the next time you play this boss, or the next time, or if you encounter it for the first time, or as you're reflecting on this music, I hope that you stop and think, yeah, that was really cool. Here's what I liked about it. And here's what really stood out to me after sort of listening to it in a more detailed way, I guess. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you so much. I know that viewer retention goes down on thank yous, but I started this channel on a whim because it's fun to talk about video game music. I am so thrilled to see that that kind of video has shot up and people are watching it and commenting really interesting things and their impressions and their feelings about the music. It's really not about me at all. I just really love video game music, and I decided to make a YouTube channel because I was sad and I didn't have anybody to talk to about video game music. So your comments and your feedback and your suggestions are super appreciated, and I'm listening to them and I'm reading them. And I just want to say thank you. We know we crossed the 100 subscribers mark, which feels really, really cool, especially because this is, my mom's not watching this. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. And please feel free to comment below what you'd want to see next or what you'd want to listen to next. I have a bunch of ideas too for myself that I'm probably going to keep exploring. I'm going to pump out a video hopefully about once a week. I'm a new dog dad, so a lot of my attention goes to my new puppy. But I really, really, really appreciate your support and your wanting to listen and watch this. So I hope you find this helpful, and thank you so much. Bye.